Hi, my name is Zad, and today I'm going to be sharing and showing you my experiences and moments I had while I was on the field trip to Crystal Springs. While I was on the field trip, I learned about pH, what dissolved oxygen, nitrates, and phosphates are, and I also learned about the biodiversity of Crystal Springs too. The people there also taught us about the water quality of the springs and how much gallons of water are stored there, which in this case is 30 million. Finally, throughout the time we were at Crystal Springs, we did a bunch of different activities such as collecting water samples of the spring, discussing things about the spring, and even fishing in the spring to learn about the different animals and species that live there. But I'm not just done yet. I'm going to go into full detail on every topic that I learned at Crystal Springs, so let's begin with water quality. pH, as you know, shows us on a scale on how much the water in an area is basic or acidic. 7 on a pH scale is neutral, 0 to 7 is acidic, and 7 to 14 are bases. Also, when you put the molecules into the water, they sometimes break down and release a hydrogen ion. At other times, they release a hydroxide ion. The main reason pH is important to us is because it allows us to see if the water is acidic or basic so we can drink it. Next on up is dissolved oxygen, and dissolved oxygen is just the amount of oxygen dissolved in the water. That's it. Oxygen enters the water either by direct absorption from the atmosphere, by rapid movement, or as a waste product of plant photosynthesis. Dissolved oxygen is important because without having it in the water, all the plants and animals underwater could die due to the lack of oxygen, of course. Then we have nitrates. Nitrates show us and help determine the water quality for different pools of water. As the decomposition of plant and animal material occurs, leaves breaking down, poop, dead animals, or plants, bacteria break down from large protein molecules into ammonia. Ammonia combines with oxygen to form nitrates and nitrites. When the nitrogen fertilizers are used to enrich soils, nitrates may be carried by rain, irrigation, and other surface waters through the soil into groundwater. Human and animal waste can also contribute to nitrate contamination of groundwater too. Finally, on the last topic of water quality, we have phosphates. Phosphates show us how much algae might be covering an area of water. When the phosphates are increased, so is algae bloom, which leads to the algae covering the surface of the water. Phosphates are important for this reason because algae covering the water can lead to a lot of other problems, such as a decrease in oxygen and less photosynthesis for the plants underwater, which eventually kills them. Now we are going to move on to some of the activities we did while we were at Crystal Springs. One activity we did was go into a river with a fishing net and a group and see how much different animals or species we could catch. During the River Critter Roundup, I wanted to see if I could catch as many fish as possible or see the different types of animals living in the water. It turns out I was actually able to catch a couple of fish, including some ghost shrimp as well. Another activity we did was look around for different boxes around the area while using a GPS. We found our destination by using the satellites hooked up to the GPS, which guided us straight to the boxes. While we move around, the GPS interacts with the satellites, which then communicate back and offer directions to where we are. Now, one of the biggest things I actually learned while I was on the field trip was about the aquifer and about the springs themselves. Basically, underneath the ground is a huge body of porous and permeable saturated rock, which allows water to easily move through it. This saturated rock is called an aquifer, and it acts like a sponge to suck up all the water and send it through different holes in the ground called springs. But while we are on the topic of aquifers, let's also quickly talk about what Florida is actually made of too. The Florida Peninsula is a limestone plateau formed many millions of years ago when the area was a warm, shallow sea. Millions of years of deposits from small sea creatures make up the limestone, which is several thousand feet thick. What limestone actually does to the water is make it clean because limestone is filled with a lot of calcium, which is good. This is also why most of Florida's aquifers are clean, is because the water usually comes in contact with limestone before it hits the aquifer. Finally, one last thing I actually learned about Crystal Springs was that the spring actually discharges 30 million gallons of water each day, which is a ton. The last topic I wanted to talk about today is what plants and animals stood out to me there, and it turns out there's a couple. Some plants and animals that stood out to me were the water spider, the water snake, and the ghost shrimp, as well as Spanish moss. The reason these things stood out to me was because they were all very interesting to learn about, and I didn't even know half of them existed. The Spanish moss, for example, grows on trees, and one thing I learned about it was that you can actually eat parts of it as a source of food. Overall, the field trip was great, and I had a lot of fun learning about the different animals, the water, and even the springs themselves. Also, discovering the area was also really cool, especially since I was doing it alongside my friends. Really, Crystal Springs was an awesome place to visit, and I hope I can learn more about it and maybe even visit it next time if I get the chance. Thank you for listening.